Hello everyone, welcome to Prelims Warm Up. This initiative has been brought to you by Aptiplus Academy for Civil Services, and I am Shayak Datta. So, in this particular initiative, we are discussing the important previous year questions. These questions have been asked in the previous year UPSC prelims examination, and as you all are aware, just like NCERT and the standard books, going through the previous year questions is very important for a proper preparation for UPSC prelims. So every day we are bringing to you and we are going to discuss five important previous year questions. And today we are going to discuss some questions on environment which had come in the year 2012 UPSC prelims. So let us see the questions one by one. The first question, the question was asked in UPSC prelims 2012 and the question asks, consider the following. Number one, black-necked crane. So it's a bird, black-necked crane. Number two, cheetah. Number three, flying squirrel. And number four, snow leopard. So number one, black-necked crane. Number two, cheetah. Number three, flying squirrel. And number four, the snow leopard. The question is asking which of the following or which of the above are naturally found in India. Out of all these, which out of the four are naturally found in India? So your options are A, 1, 2, and 3 only, B, 1, 3, and 4 only, C, 2 and 4 only, and D, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now the thing is, okay, why did I give this particular question in this particular initiative? The reason is, see, most of you would be aware that out of the following, we do not have cheetah in India. So cheetah is already eliminated. So this is a very good example of your elimination technique or elimination. So one thing that why how can it get cheetah? You can eliminate cheetah because of if you have been following the newspapers, about cheetah reduction program of the Indian government. This is not a new program or this is not a new initiative, but this is something that has been going on for almost a decade now. The entire plan in government did not work. And when we get to see that Supreme Court has given a go ahead to the. So that is why again this particular question becomes very. Option number A, you have number 2, that is cheetah. Similarly, in option C and D also you have cheetah. So if you simply eliminate cheetah, you can arrive to the right answer, that is 1, 3, and 4 only, which is your option B. So this is a very good example of elimination technique, because just by eliminating one, you can arrive at the correct answer. You don't even have to know okay, whether the rest of the species are actually found in India or not. So that is not required. If you are very clear that one of the species is definitely not found in India. So with this, we come to the option B, which is the correct answer. And along with that, it is very important that you should be aware about this entire cheetah reintroduction program of the Indian government. So cheetahs, they are broadly, you can classify them into two types. So one, you have the Asiatic cheetah, and the other you have the African cheetah. So the Asiatic cheetah used to be found in India. In fact, we get to see that the Rajas and Maharajas used to keep them as pets, mainly for hunting purpose. But then due to overhunting, due to overexploitation, due to destruction of habitat, ultimately we get to see that the cheetah, it became extinct from India. So around 1947 was the year when the last cheetahs, they were shot dead in Chhattisgarh. And then we get to see that later on in the 1950s, the cheetah was finally announced as it was extinct from India. So here, 1947, as I have mentioned in this picture, in 1947, India's last Asiatic cheetah was spotted and it was killed. In 1952, officially we get to see that the cheetah was declared as extinct from India. Now the question arises, कि ठीक है, Asiatic cheetah went extinct from India. Now, if India has to introduce the cheetah, in that case, where will they get the cheetahs from? Because Asiatic cheetah, apart from India, like where it was earlier found, now the Asiatic cheetah is only found in Iran. And that too, the population is very, very small. Around 50 individuals of Asiatic cheetah are found in Iran. So India has been in talks with Iran, but then so India basically wanted a few cheetahs, from Iran, and they wanted to bring and reintroduce this. But then Iran, they wanted some Asiatic lion in exchange, because the Asiatic lion is also found only in India. So you have the Asiatic cheetah, which is only found in Iran, and you have the Asiatic lion, which is only found in India. And Iran wanted a few Asiatic lions in exchange for the Asiatic cheetah. But then Gujarat was not willing to part with its lion population. They wanted to keep a monopoly over the Asiatic lion. And as a result of which, ultimately, we get to see that this deal between India and Iran did not ultimately go through. So India had only one other option, and that option was to get African cheetah, because anyhow it was not possible to get Asiatic cheetah, as Iran was unwilling to share some of the cheetahs from there. There was a lot of opposition to this entire plan of introducing African cheetah instead of Asiatic cheetah, because the Asiatic cheetah used to be native to India. So if we introduce the African cheetah, then it will be like the introduction of an alien species. But then India had no other option, and we ultimately get to see this year that the Supreme Court ultimately gave a green signal. They have allowed Indian government to bring cheetahs from Africa and reintroduce them into India. Now, cheetah is a species which requires a very large area, and that to grassy area, not too thick jungle, because all of you are aware that it is the fastest land mammal. So naturally, in order for it to be able to achieve the kind of speed that it does, it is essential that it should have vast open grasslands, which is a very, very endangered ecosystem in India. Because in India, we get to see most of the grasslands are not given their due importance. What actually happens is this: okay, most of the grasslands, they are either converted into farmlands or agricultural lands, or they are converted, or you get to see that afforestation, reforestation work is done, and ultimately the grassland ecosystem, it is in great danger right now. So one section of conservationists, they are of the opinion that if we bring the cheetah, it will act like a flagship species for the grassland ecosystem, and in this manner, we will be able to conserve the grassland ecosystem in India. But then there is another section of conservationists who are of the opinion that why do we have to bring a separate species, because already we have certain species which are flagship species for grassland ecosystem. For example, the great Indian bustard is there. For example, the Indian wolf is there, and we are not being able to conserve them properly. So what is the requirement? What is the need? And already we know that the fund allocated for wildlife conservation and for nature conservation, that is very, very minuscule. With that small amount of money, we have to undertake all this conservation work for the various species which are already there in India. Now, to bring a new species, it might imply that the attention which was being given for the conservation of flagship species like the Indian elephant or like the tiger, that attention might get diverted, and the entire attention will now go to the conservation of cheetah. So there is a conflict among the conservationists also regarding whether it would be correct to bring the African cheetah to India or not. Anyway, a few places have now been selected as the possible areas for reintroduction of the cheetah. For example, we have a particular area called as the Kuno Palpur National Park. Kuno Palpur National Park, it earlier used to be a wildlife sanctuary, but last year only we get to see it has been elevated to the status of a national park. And Kuno Palpur National Park is also the possible reintroduction or relocation site for the Asiatic lion, because there is overpopulation of the Asiatic lion in the Gir National Park of Gujarat, and it is being thought okay, we might have to bring a few prides of Asiatic lion from Gir National Park and relocate them in the Kuno Palpur National Park of Madhya Pradesh. So one such area is the Kuno Palpur National Park in Madhya Pradesh. Similarly, you have another area which is the Shahgarh landscape, which is in Rajasthan. So there are a few areas which have been identified as possible areas for relocation or reintroduction of the cheetah, but we have to wait and see as to which are the final areas which will be where it will be ultimately reintroduced. Now, another very important thing that you should be aware of is this: if India manages to undertake this project successfully, and if the cheetah starts to breed successfully in India, multiply successfully in India, in that case, we will get to see that India will be the only country in the world which will be housing so many big cats. For example, India is already the only country in the world which has the tiger, which has the lion. And now, apart from the tiger and lion, we already have the common leopard, we have the snow leopard, we have the clouded leopard. And now if the cheetah gets reintroduced, we will also be having cheetah as well, which will help to bring a lot of revenue from ecotourism. So you will find a lot of wildlife photographers and researchers from across the world who will be coming to India. So that is one advantage, but then there are multiple drawbacks of this plan as well. So I would request all of you to go through this particular issue, this particular topic, because this has been in the news and hence it becomes relevant for this year's UPSC prelims. Okay. So now moving on to the next question for the day. So the next question is, what would happen if phytoplanktons of an ocean is completely destroyed for some reason? And this question was also asked in the year 2012. I'll repeat the question. What would happen if the phytoplanktons of an ocean, they are completely destroyed for some reason? And you have been given three statements. First statement, the ocean as a carbon sink would be adversely affected. So I believe all of you are aware of what is a carbon sink. A carbon sink is basically an area where carbon sequestration can be carried out. And what is meant by carbon sequestration? Carbon sequestration is actually a process by which it can be both artificial as well as natural process. So it is basically a process by which the atmospheric carbon dioxide, we will try to store the atmospheric carbon dioxide on the earth itself and not allow it to get accumulated in the atmosphere, because as you are aware that carbon dioxide and other carbon compounds, they act as greenhouse gases, and hence they also exaggerate, or they actually help in increasing the problems of global warming, climate change, etc. So it is very essential that we practice carbon sequestration in whatever way possible. So carbon sink is basically an area where carbon will be stored after sequestration. Okay. So carbon sink is such an area. For example, a natural forest can be called as a carbon sink. For example, a water body like an ocean, like a sea, or even like a lake can be designated as a carbon sink because all these areas store carbon. Okay. Anyway, the first statement was the ocean as a carbon sink would be adversely affected. The second statement is the food chains in the ocean would be adversely affected. And all of you, I believe, are aware about what is a food chain. So I won't go into that. Third statement is the density of ocean water would drastically decrease. Okay. And you have been given four options: A, 1 and 2 only, B, 2 only, C, 3 only, and D, 1, 2, and 3. Now let us examine and analyze each of the statements one by one. Number one, the ocean as a carbon sink would be adversely affected. Is that correct? Now, phytoplanktons, as you know, okay, these are microscopic green plants. Phytoplanktons are microscopic green plants. So if they are microscopic green plants, you can understand that they will be carrying out photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is a process by which what is done? Carbon dioxide is absorbed and oxygen is given out. So naturally, if you have all the phytoplanktons of an ocean getting destroyed due to some reason or the other, the ocean as a carbon sink will be affected, because ocean will no longer be able to store the atmospheric carbon dioxide because phytoplankton won't be there any longer, right? So first statement is definitely correct. Second statement, the food chains in the ocean would be adversely affected. Now for this, you need to have some knowledge about the food chain in the aquatic ecosystem. In case of an aquatic ecosystem, what happens? The food chain begins from the phytoplankton, because phytoplankton is considered to be the primary producer in case of a aquatic ecosystem. So it is the phytoplankton which is the primary producer, and these phytoplanktons, they are fed upon by the zooplanktons. So the zooplanktons will consume the phytoplanktons. What are these zooplanktons? The zooplanktons are nothing but microscopic animal organisms. So you have the microscopic plants which are called as phytoplanktons. They will be consumed by the microscopic animal organisms which are called as the zooplanktons. And finally, we will get to see that the zooplanktons will be consumed by fish. So when I say zooplanktons, I mean to say small crustaceans, and they are very, very microscopic ones. So like protozoa and all these things, so they will be there. So ultimately what we get to see is this, okay, the food chain will definitely get affected, because if the phytoplanktons get destroyed, then eventually we will get to see कि zooplankton का जो population है, that will also decline. Automatically the fish population will also decline. So that kind of a thing will happen. It will be like a chain effect. So second statement is also correct. The third statement, density of ocean water would drastically decrease. Now there are two things over here. Number one, whenever you find a very absolute word or a term like drastically decrease, etc., usually these statements are incorrect. But again, that is not always the case, but this is, I am saying, this is a hint that you can take. Okay, whenever you find in a statement terms like drastically, very quickly, extremely rapidly, etc., etc., such kind of absolute terms, you should look at it at such statements more than once to be doubly sure, basically. Second thing is that phytoplanktons, they do not contribute to the density of ocean water as such, right? So the density, definitely the number of fish, let's say, for example, the number of fish swimming in the sea will not affect the density of sea water or ocean water. Similarly, phytoplanktons are a separate species altogether. That is not going to have an effect on the density of water as such. So third statement is incorrect. The first two are correct. So your option, the correct option should be A, 1 and 2 only. Okay. And here I have given you a picture of bioluminescent phytoplanktons, and we get to see this rare phenomena in certain places where the phytoplanktons, they are bioluminescent, and what happens is this, okay, they will glow like this. So at night you will find the water of oceans and seas, they will glow, and it will appear, it will be a very strange kind of a phenomena, but it's very, very beautiful. This is an example of bioluminescent phytoplanktons. Moving on to the third question. The third question is, which one of the following groups of animals belong to the category of endangered species? Which one of the following groups of animals belong to the category of endangered species? It was asked in 2012. Option A, great Indian bustard, musk deer, red panda, and Asiatic wild ass. That is option A. Option A, I'll repeat once again. It is great Indian bustard, musk deer, red panda, and Asiatic wild ass. Option B, Kashmir stag, cheetal, blue bull, and great Indian bustard. Option C, the snow leopard, swamp deer, rhesus macaque, and sarus or the crane. And option D, the lion-tailed macaque or LTM, blue bull, the Hanuman or langur, and the cheetal. You have to find out which out of these groups of species belong to the category of endangered species. Now here also you can actually apply the concept of elimination method. How? For example, any of you who actually belong to North India or places like, let's say, Delhi or places like Bihar, so you would be very much aware that this blue bull, the species, it is also referred to as nilgai. The species blue bull, it is also referred to as nilgai. And this nilgai species, it enjoys a lot of protection, mainly because of its name, nilgai. So already the term gai is there in the name, and as a result of which we get to see that people are usually very reluctant to kill these species, and as a result of which their population has exploded, and mainly this has been seen in the state of Bihar. So as a result of which we get to see that these species, they are declared as vermin species or as pests basically from time to time by the government of India, which allows them to be eliminated by some registered shooters. So basic thing is that the blue bull, it harms crops to a great deal, and hence the blue bull definitely cannot be an endangered species. So that is number one. So wherever you have blue bull, you can eliminate those options. For example, let us see in option B, we have blue bull. So automatically you can eliminate the option. Also, in case of option B, you see we have another species called as cheetal or spotted deer. Now, any of you who might be living near forest, you would be aware that the forest, that the cheetal or the spotted deer is found in very large numbers. So definitely this species cannot be an endangered species. So option B can also be eliminated. Option D. Now let us look at option D. Lion-tailed macaque, blue bull, Hanuman langur, and cheetal. Now this is very easily eliminated because here you have cheetal, here you have the blue bull, and the Hanuman langur you all are aware of. They are found in very large numbers. So this also can be eliminated. Finally, we get to see that you are left with only two options, that is option A and option C. And here also see in option C we have the rhesus monkey, or the this is the rhesus monkey, means the common monkey. So you can very well understand it cannot be an endangered species. So you can very easily eliminate option B, C, and D, and you are left with only one option, that is option A. So the answer should be option A. But again, I would like to give one little clarification over here. Okay, this Asiatic wild ass. Okay, this Asiatic wild ass. This Asiatic wild ass, it is actually a near threatened species now. So this question was from 2012. Maybe at that point of time it used to belong to an endangered species. But now if you check the IUCN status of the Asiatic wild ass, it is a near threatened species, not exactly an endangered species. So 3A is the correct answer. And I have given a small a picture over here from which you can get information regarding this very important species, which is one of the favorite species of UPSC, and UPSC keeps on asking questions on this species, that is the great Indian bustard. Mainly, and this species will always be in the news every single year, and hence this becomes very important every year, especially from UPSC's prelims perspective as well as from the mains perspective. And why? Because we get to see that the population of this great Indian bustard, it has fallen to a great deal. Now even less than 150 of these birds are there in India. Very important that you remember that the great Indian bustard is endemic to the Indian subcontinent. It is only found in India and Pakistan. That is the western part of India and the eastern part of Pakistan, mainly in the Rajasthan, Gujarat area, but those are not the only states where it is found. It is also found in other states, for example, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh to some extent. But in most of these states, the population has fallen to a great deal, and now the largest population is present only in Gujarat and Rajasthan. So please go through these parts. I have especially included these photographs and pictures so that you know about this entire topic of the great Indian bustard. And we already get to see that the great Indian bustard is also considered to be the state bird of Rajasthan, and Rajasthan government, they have initiated a project called as Project Godawan. Godawan is the local name for the great Indian bustard in Rajasthan. And even the government of India has initiated a project for the conservation of this great Indian bustard. So please learn about this particular issue. Now moving on to the fourth question for the day, and this is also from 2012 UPSC prelims. And this is a comparatively easier question because here three species have been given and you have been asked which out of them are pollinating agents. So you can understand the process of pollination. I hope all of you are aware of, and pollination can again be of two types. It can be self-pollination and it can also be cross-pollination. And we get to see pollinators are those species which help in the process of pollination. There are three species which have been mentioned: bat, bee, and bird. They've been asked out of these three, which among them are pollinators. Very easy. I believe all of you would be able to answer this question. So all the three are actually examples of pollinators. So D, 1, 2, and 3 should be the correct option. And it's not just bat, bee, and bird, but over here I've included the other pollinators as well. So bees, of course, are there. Bees are considered to be, you must be aware about terms like keystone species, right? Keystone species, these are those species which hold the ecosystem together. In the absence of these species, or if their population declines to a great extent, then the ecosystem might collapse. The bee It's just a small species, but it plays a very, very important role in the ecosystem because it's an example of a keystone species. Without the bee, you will find many species of trees and plants will go extinct, and alongside them, we'll also find the species of animals which are dependent upon these trees and plants. They will also go extinct. So, bee is an example of a keystone species. It is also a pollinator. So you have bees, you have butterflies, you have wasps, you have moths, beetles, flies, birds, bats, even the wind and human beings themselves are examples of pollinators. I would even go to the extent and say elephants are also pollinators. In fact, there's a particular, the largest flower that you have, Rafflesia. It is dependent upon elephants actually in order for pollination to take place. And in the US, we get to see June 20th to 26th is celebrated as pollinator week. Okay, and so you have Monday dedicated for the bee, Tuesday dedicated to the hummingbirds, Wednesday dedicated to butterflies, Thursday to the gardens and pesticides, and Friday for the bats, and Saturdays for the birds. That is not important, but what is important, because this is something which is celebrated in USA. So what is important is you remember what are pollinators, how they are important, why bee is a keystone species, what are the other types of pollinators that are there, and how pollination takes place. So answer should be D, 1, 2, and 3. We have already seen the answer. Moving on to the last question for the day. And this question was also asked in 2012 UPSC prelims, and you have been given 4 protected areas. Number 1 is Bandipur, number 2 is Bhitarkanika, number 3 is Manas, and number 4 Sundarbans. You have been asked out of the above which are tiger reserves. A, 1 and 2 only, B, 1, 3 and 4 only, C, 2, 3 and 4 only, and D, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So Bandipur, it is present in Karnataka. Bhitarkanika, it is present in Orissa. Manas is in Assam, and Sundarbans, it is in West Bengal. You have been asked to find out or to answer out of the following which are tiger reserves. Tiger reserve and tiger conservation becomes very, very important for this year's prelims, because last year we get to see that the tiger census results of 2018 census were published, and there were many important highlights from that particular report that you need to remember. Every year we get to see UPSC asks at least one question which is based on either tiger reserves or tiger conservation, etc., etc. This species will always be in the news, India's national animal, and hence it is very important that you study this species, the process or the method or the technique of tiger census, the highlights of this year's results of the tiger census. These are very, very important. At the same time, you should also be aware about NTCA, National Tiger Conservation Authority. You should also be aware about tiger reserves. Like tiger reserve is managed on a core and buffer concept. So all these things you should be very well aware of. What are the various threats which are being faced by the tiger, etc., etc. So out of the following, we get to see Bandipur. Yes, it is a tiger reserve. Bhitarkanika, which is in Orissa, no. Bhitarkanika is not a tiger reserve. It's a mangrove forest, that is true. It is known for its crocodiles and mainly the saltwater crocodile. In fact, it is said that Bhitarkanika has the world's largest estuarine or the saltwater crocodiles, but we do not find tigers over there. In fact, the only mangrove forest where tigers are found is Sundarbans. So Bhitarkanika you can strike out. So if you just eliminate option 2, you see again this is a very good example where you can see how elimination method can become useful. You might not be aware about Manas. You might not know whether tigers are found in Manas or not. You might be aware that definitely it will be found in Sundarbans, but you might get confused whether Manas has tigers or not. But if you are aware that Bhitarkanika definitely does not have tiger, because the only mangrove forest in the world which supports tiger is the Sundarbans, and Bhitarkanika being a mangrove forest, definitely it cannot have tiger. So if you are able to eliminate option 2, you see you are only left with option B, and option B is the right answer. 1, 3 and 4 is the right answer. For your information, Manas is also a World Heritage Site, plus we also get to see Manas, not only does it support tiger population, but it also has a population of rhinoceros. In fact, in India there are only 3 such states, at least there used to be 3 such states which had rhino population, the highest being of course in Assam, the second highest in West Bengal, and then in UP. And so in Assam, apart from Kaziranga, you also had Manas, which supports a good population of the rhino. But now we also get to see rhinos are being reintroduced into Corbett Tiger Reserve, which is in Uttarakhand. So going ahead, we will get to see that the rhinoceros will be found in 4 states of India. Anyway, so far as this particular question is concerned, your answer should be B, 1, 3, and 4. And over here, I have given you a map of the various tiger reserves of India. But again, the numbers will keep on changing. Right now, we have 50 tiger reserves. We had started with only 9 in the year 1973 under Project Tiger. And today we have 50 tiger reserves, the last one being the Kamlang Tiger Reserve of Arunachal Pradesh. But please keep a lookout on the new ones which will be announced from time to time, and just jot them down in your note. So this is it for today's session, and we'll come back with a set of 5 new questions in our next session. So till then, stay safe, study hard, and if you have liked this particular session, please let us know in the comment section. Also subscribe to AptiPlus's YouTube channel, and keep checking this channel for more such informative videos. Thank you so much.
I'm an icon, man. And my girl about a 10. I should fuck her in the Benz.